Welcome, everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast, starring your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo. And now, the man from Wisconsin who left us all alone, Jeff Non-Dairy Kramer.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the ComedySportz Podcast. I'm Christine Rollo Capriolo. Today, I'm super excited. I get to talk to Jeff Kramer all the way from San Jose. Jeff, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for flying me in.
You're welcome. It only cost a couple bucks, so I'm really glad you could make it. This is super awesome.
I appreciate it. And it's a write-off for you.
It really is. It's just no big deal. So, Jeff, tell me, I'd like to ask everybody at the beginning, where were you born and raised?
I was actually born in New York City. My dad was in retail, so he worked at all of the big department stores in New York, Macy's and Bloomingdale's and Gimbel's and all of those. So that's where I was born, and we lived in New York and then outside of New York, and then eventually they moved to the suburbs in Connecticut.
Okay.
And so I grew up on the East Coast.
Oh, I didn't know that. Then did you go to school in Madison, Wisconsin?
I went to grad school in Madison. So I did my undergrad at Penn State and then Wisconsin for graduate school.
Okay. And were you studying theater?
Yeah. Yeah. I got a BFA at Penn State, and then I got my MFA at Wisconsin. And yeah, it was in theater and performance.
Okay. Why did you pick Wisconsin?
Well, that's interesting because I had gotten accepted at a few places, and I had actually gotten accepted at USC. And my heart was set on going there because I was thinking, this is great, and it's LA, and I was going to go there for school. And then I was just getting ready to go out there and look for apartments. And I get a call from Dale Lewis at the University of Wisconsin. And he said, look, we've got an opening, and they had accepted me already, but I had decided that I was going to go to USC.
Okay.
So he called me and said, we had one of our grad students drop out, and I actually have a full TA-ship available for you if you want it, which was basically a free ride, through school.
Yeah.
And getting paid to teach and everything. And so, but it was Wisconsin. I'd never even heard of Wisconsin.
Right. That was why I asked.
Yeah. And so I actually talked to my advisor at Penn State, and it turned out that she had gone to Wisconsin.
No, really?
And had studied, there under a professor that was still there. And she said, look, here's what you should do. Go and look at both schools. Mm-hmm. And by the time you come back, you'll have made your decision.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And I didn't believe her. I was like, how can I, you're not going to change my mind or whatever. So
right.
Then it was interesting. I went on the same trip, first I went to Wisconsin, met the people there. They were great. They were amazing, so nice and friendly, and everybody was asking great questions, and they were very interested in saying, "Oh, we hope you'll come." And the department secretary actually said, "Are you looking at other schools?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm looking at USC." And she went, "No, you're not. You don't want to go there. You want to come here." And I went to USC right out. I flew from Wisconsin directly to LA, and looked at the school there, and I just, the attitude of the people there was very, very different.
Yeah.
They didn't even know I was coming, even though I had told them I was coming. They were like, who are you? And so it was that kind of attitude.
Sure.
But I still wanted to go there, just the idea of between those two places. And so I'm on the flight coming back, and I literally was like, I can't make up my mind. I need a sign. And they brought a snack tray to everybody.
Yeah.
This was in the day when you got food when you flew.
Yeah, food on a plane.
And I didn't even have to pay for it.
Wow.
But anyway, so they bring me this fruit and cheese tray. And I pick up this piece of cheese, and in huge letters on it, it says "Made in Wisconsin."
On the cheese.
On the cheese, a true story. And I went, okay, if I was looking for a sign, I just got it.
Nice.
And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be talking to you right now.
Really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah, because I decided to go to Wisconsin, and in my beginning of my third year, Wisconsin, the summer of 1985, my advisor said, hey, there's this guy, and he has this improv show that he started in Milwaukee, and he wants to see if he can get one going in Madison.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I had any theater students that liked improv.
Yeah.
And I'd done a little bit of improv, but nothing formal, just in acting classes. And I enjoyed doing it.
Right.
And he said, this guy's coming in on Sunday, so can you just go and talk to him? I told him I'd send him a couple of students.
Okay.
So my friend Dave Miller and I went to meet him, and it was this little guy. And he said, hey, we're doing this show. And he starts telling us about it. And he tells us about the brown bag foul and the idea of it. And he has us, just the two of us, play What Are You Doing?
Okay.
So Dave and I play What Are You Doing? And we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And he says, okay, I'm going to start coming back next week. And the plan is we're looking for people to form a company, and we're going to start training people, and we're going to be doing a show starting in September.
Okay.
So this was probably in June.
Okay.
And he said, can you just get a bunch of other people that you know that you think could do this? And I'll be back next week. So between Dave and I, we just started asking all of our friends, and they asked a few friends of theirs. So Dave was in a show at the time with a woman named Jennifer Rupp.
Sure, I've heard of her.
And yes, I was currently doing a play that summer, and I had just met this guy, literally the first day of rehearsal. You know how you just kind of click with people on the first, when you first meet them?
Yeah.
So I clicked with this guy the first day of rehearsal, and it was Mike Rock.
Okay.
And I said, hey, there's this guy I met, and next Sunday you got to come with me because I think you'd be really good at this show.
Yeah. And
so we just got a bunch of our friends, probably a dozen of us showed up the following Sunday.
Okay.
And Dick was there, and Karen Kohlberg was there as well. And they just started training us. They told us about what they were going to do, and we've got a place. It was the Hoffman House Motel, which Dick already talked about, and we're going to start training. And so we trained for, I think it was 8 weeks, and it was 8 hours each Sunday.
Nice. Okay.
So we would somehow get ourselves out of bed. We're all in college, right? So it's not like we're not staying up late on Saturday nights.
Right. Right.
So we're somehow all of us are getting ourselves out of bed Sunday morning, and by 9 o'clock we're at the Hoffman House and we're training.
Yeah.
And it's literally 9 to 12, take a break for lunch.
Sure.
1 to 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And, and then we're back the next week. So, I mean, it was like boot camp. It was improv boot camp. John Bank came in a few times and helped us out. And yeah, we just they would show us a game and drill us in the games.
Okay. And
that's what was going on.
Wow.
And that continued for, 8 weeks.
Sure. And
then we were ready to open. And I just remember that first night because we were in this, Dick had a hotel room, or it was probably a suite, but at the Hoffman House, a suite was just a bigger hotel room. And he said, all right, I want all of you to close your eyes. And I just want you to picture this. I want you to picture this becoming like the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA. And I want you to picture us being in, right now we're in Milwaukee and we're in Madison, but I want you to picture us being in 25, 30 cities across the country, and you're doing home and away matches and you're traveling.
Yeah.
And we all just pictured it. And nobody laughed about it either. Everyone just thought, yeah, that would be great.
Right.
And then we went out and did this show, and it killed. I mean, it was just a great show.
Yeah.
Because it was all of our friends.
Sure.
And I was teaching a couple of theater classes, as a grad student. So I gave all my students extra credit if they came to see the show.
And laughed.
So that I was responsible for probably 40 of the 150 that were there.
Right.
and everyone else, friends and family, and they packed the place. So of course it was a great show.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And we just went on from there, but It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Isn't it? Hearing everybody's stories, and when people talk about meeting Dick Chudnow, it just makes me smile to think that we all have this connection because of this one man, and he's so wonderful. And I just love hearing everybody's stories about how they crossed paths with him.
Yeah, people say funny things about Dick, and I do as well, but he completely changed my life.
Exactly.
If I hadn't met him, again, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now.
Right.
Because of him, I started doing that show.
Yeah.
When he found out that I was, leaving, I finished up my degree, and that was about the time that they were wanting to expand. And he said, when you get out there, are you interested in starting a show out there? And I was coming out here because I got a job with the Children's Theater
in San Jose.
Out here in San Jose.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, I'd love to start. I'm going to have this other job, but I don't want to stop doing this show. That would be great.
Yeah.
And he said, all right, when you get out there, let me know and we'll work on that. And, that's how I got started out here. I was here anyway, but it was all in the timing. It was right at the time when they were looking to start expanding.
And what year was that?
So I moved out here in August of '86, and it took me about a year because I was involved in this children's theater and there's a lot of touring going on, and it took a while to, I didn't know the area, so finding a space and then finding people.
Right.
And I just did the Madison, Milwaukee blueprint. I looked for people and said, okay, we're going to train on Sundays for 6 to 8 hours.
Right.
And, and find a couple of friends, and then they found friends, and, that's how it worked.
So you were only in Madison for a year doing ComedySportz.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a year in Madison, and in 2 or 3 different places, which I realized was later going to be the norm.
Yeah. Where were you there? What place?
I'm trying to remember. Well, I was there. We opened in Madison in 1985.
Was that Pizza Hut?
No. That was the Hoffman House.
Right,
was
the
first
Hoffman
place.
House. Yeah.
And then we finished up the run there. It was just like an 8-week run at the Hoffman House.
Yeah.
And we were all thinking that, well, I guess we're done, because they had told us we were just going to be there for 8 weeks. And I think they wanted to put something else in this ballroom.
Okay.
I remember Dick talking about they were trying to find ways to buy people to, eat the buffet and stuff. So I think they were going to put this horrible buffet in there or something. And we were doing our last show. And this was a great moment because, unbeknownst to us, Dick was looking for another space.
Okay.
And he brought the person that was in charge of this other space to see this show, our last show.
Okay.
And I guess that's what cinched the deal. This guy watched it and said, "Oh yeah, this will be great." It was a bar that I think was called Zingers. It changed names like 6 times, even in the year I was in Madison. I don't even know what it is now.
Sure.
But I remember we finished the last round, and then Jennifer was reffing, and she said, "All right, everyone, we want to thank you so much for coming out. This is our last week here at the Hoffman House. We're not sure where we're going to be afterwards, but if we find a space, we'll let you know." And all of a sudden we hear, "Wait, hold everything." And it's Dick. And he comes running up onto the stage and he goes, "Starting next week, we're going to be at Zingers on Washington Street," or wherever it was. And the place erupts and we went nuts. And
oh, that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he trip when he ran up on the stage, by the way?
No, he wanted that to be serious, so he did not do a pratfall.
Oh, okay. Because I could see it in my head.
Yeah. No, this was like a big thing, so he wanted to make sure everybody knew that he was being serious about it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned you were on a plane and you needed a sign and you saw the Made in Wisconsin cheese stamp.
Right.
So have you ever, do you believe in signs? Have you looked for signs for other things, do you think, in your life?
I think they've happened whether I've asked for them or not.
Yeah.
There's just been something where when I've had to make a decision, it was just there. It appeared there in front of me.
Okay.
And it wasn't that hard to make the decision on what to do.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just curious to me. I like that. Made in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, but that was for that one, when people ask, was there a turning point in your life? And that absolutely was the turning point, in my life. Because if I hadn't, it was a simple matter of where do you go to school, but that just set up everything going forward for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now it's just, you're right. I mean, do you ever wonder what if you went to USC, how everything would be so different?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, that happens quite a bit. And, you always wish that you could invent some sort of machine where you could go and do that. We actually invented a ComedySportz game called What If?
Okay.
Where we do that. I don't know if you've ever played that. It's one of those kind of rarely played games, but you ask an audience member to tell you about a decision that they had to make, like a life-altering decision.
Okay.
So, if we were playing and it was me, I'd say, well, I had to decide whether to go to school in Los Angeles or whether to go to school in Wisconsin.
Right.
And you'd say, all right, what was your decision? And I'd say, well, I decided to go to school in Wisconsin. You say, all right, well, we're going to show you what would have happened if you had made the other decision.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's fun.
And so in the scene, I would do this they'd do this quick little scene where I'm making this decision. Okay, I'm going to grad school in Los Angeles.
Right.
And then for the next 4 minutes, everything just falls apart.
Right.
And my life gets worse and worse and worse.
Right.
And the way we used to play it originally was no matter what, it was a series of circumstances where you wound up in the very last scene in the electric chair.
Oh, no.
And you're like, I guess I made the wrong decision, and that was it. So.
The electric chair? Oh.
The electric chair, or at the very least, you were in jail with like 3 cellmates advancing on you. And
that's time.
And that's time. But that's what was great. It was like, no matter what happens, we have to get to that point. So,
right. That's great. I think I've seen it once or played it once years ago. I was thinking of the other game when you started talking about that. Yeah, that could happen. Mm-hmm. You remember that one?
Exactly.
That one's rarely played, but that one's super fun too. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, well, that one is a little bit different because you're just kind of getting hypothetical situations.
Right, yeah.
Right? And you say, what if, Eleanor Roosevelt had the ability to create buildings with her mind.
Right.
And then you say, that could happen. And then you do a scene like that.
Right. Yeah. It's a bunch of short scenes and you get just tons of suggestions at the start. Famous people, places, events. Yeah. That's a fun one too. But both those kind of the same idea of, what would have happened.
Yeah. And that's, what the thing I loved about What If is that no matter what, you're making the audience member feel like they made the right decision.
Yes, you're validating their choice. That's lovely, isn't it?
And and I mean, we can get into this in a little while, but that's what I love most about ComedySportz, this particular format and the way we play it. Yeah.
Well, tell me about San Jose, starting San Jose. ComedySportz, not the city of San Jose. Yeah. You started ComedySportz in San Jose. Tell me about that.
Well, you'd be surprised anytime someone writes a story on you. Somehow it comes out that you started either ComedySportz or you invented improv.
Right.
When you misquote, you're like, no, I never said. Oh, it's out there now. Everyone believes it.
Whatever.
So yeah. Well, so I was out here, with this children's theater, and I actually was in. There were 4 of us that had gone to Wisconsin together in graduate school that had become friends.
Okay.
2 of us were in the acting program. And one was in the costume design program, and one was in the directing program.
Okay.
And the person in the directing program was Pat Short.
Oh, sure.
So we moved out here together because we all got hired by the same children's theater. Okay. And so we moved out to San Jose, and we found a 4-bedroom townhouse, and we moved in, and we were literally just all out of school and working professionally in theater, which was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the even more unbelievable thing was our rent. So the rent for the 4-bedroom townhouse was $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Not each. I mean, for the whole thing.
Yeah.
So there were 4 bedrooms. One bedroom was a little bit bigger, and Pat said, "You know what? I'll take the that bedroom, but I'll pay a little more. So he paid $260 a month, and the rest of us were paying $240 a month in rent.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that same townhouse, I live about a mile or so from that same complex.
Oh, wow.
And those townhouses now are renting for about $4,500 a month.
Wow.
Because things are so insane out here.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, we moved in together. Now, Pat and I know he told you this, he had the opportunity to jump into Comedy Sports, but he was working on his master's degree at the time, and he just had too much going on.
In
so
Madison,
he couldn't come
right?
to those workshops.
Yeah.
And he probably told you this already, that, he came to that first show.
Right. Yes. He told me that. Yes.
Yeah. And so, now he had the opportunity, which was great. So,
Sure.
we moved out here together, and from the beginning, it was going to be, all right, let's work on this. I have all the artistic knowledge and, how to do this show. But Pat also had just a great logical mind as well, which really balanced me out. And so, he helped me. We started going around looking for spaces, of course. And, we didn't know then what we know now, which is, try and get your own space, because otherwise you have to deal with the people that are the owners of these restaurant banquet rooms.
Right.
And, we had to deal with a lot of them. So but the interesting thing was, we'd walk in, and I don't know how I did it. It was probably because, I was 25, 26 years old, right? I couldn't do it now. There's no way I could do it now. But I walked in to a couple of different places, and I sold them on the idea of us doing a show that didn't exist outside of Milwaukee and Madison. We didn't even have, performers yet.
Right.
And convinced them that it would be a great idea to give us their space on, Friday or Saturday night, and we'll sell tickets and they'll take all the food and drink sales.
Sure.
And there'll be so many people coming that you'll make money on us.
It'll be insane.
And, yeah. You'll be rich beyond your wildest dreams.
Right. It'll be so amazing.
Right. And, this was a pattern that a lot of us went through, right?
Sure.
And so, I still don't know how I convinced them, because, improv, if you said the word improv to anybody at the time, it was, oh, you mean like the stand-up club, the improv. And that's only if they knew that. Right. Right. But you're trying to explain. So try to explain to them the concept of improv, then try to explain to them the concept of this show.
Exactly. Yes.
So, we walked out of 2 or 3 places where they were like, yeah, no, thanks.
Yeah,
and we convinced this one, place. It was a bar, restaurant, and they had like 3 banquet rooms, and we convinced them to give us their space, and we trained the people and then told them to bring all their friends. So, opening night, we had 150 people show up.
Right. That's great.
And, the owner of the restaurant was like, oh, this is so great. I'm so glad you're here. This is going to be terrific. And, the next week, 6 people were there because,
exactly.
all of our friends came the first week.
Right. They weren't coming again.
You're coming next week, right? And they're like, it's the same show, right? No, it's different. It'll be different. Yeah, I'll never mind.
Right.
So,
no, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had 150 or so at our first show. We had 6 at the second show.
Yeah.
And then things started to slowly pick up. But, within 6 weeks, I get a phone call, from the restaurant owner. Hey, can we talk? Come in. We're not making enough money. They're not buying enough drinks.
Wow.
We want to get a percentage of your door too.
Oh, okay.
And, Pat and I were stormed out of there. Like, how dare you? We wouldn't pay rent on a space. What kind of business decision is that? You hear us say it, even saying it right now sounds so ridiculous. What kind of a dumb business move would it be for me to rent a space? Come on.
Are you insane?
I'll just find another person to give us one for free.
So how many places do you think you did shows in before your space now?
Before we found our first space that we started renting, we were in 10 different locations.
10 different locations.
10 locations in our first 4.5 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At one point, we were in 2 locations. 3 locations. Mm-hmm. One on Thursdays, one on Fridays, one on Saturdays.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And Yeah. And at one of them, they actually let us build a little stage.
Okay.
Because because of the room, we had to be raised up to be seen. So
right.
we didn't have a lot of money. So what we did was we built these little platforms, these like 4x8 platforms. Mm-hmm. We had enough money to get the wood, and one of the players had enough carpentry skills to be able to build it. And we found some old AstroTurf and stapled it down, to these platforms.
Sure.
We went, well, how are we going to do this with, we got to raise it up a little bit. And we came with the brilliant idea of using cinder blocks.
Oh, my God.
So we went to the hardware store, and they were really cheap, and we got like a dozen cinder blocks.
Okay.
But every week at this one particular place, we had to set up the stage before the show and take it down afterwards.
Right.
And they had a storage shed behind the restaurant.
Okay.
So we had to go out to the storage shed, pick up these 3 heavy platforms, bring them in, and then carry cinder blocks into the place.
Oh my God.
Set it up, do the show on a stage which is like wobbling off of the cinder blocks, be careful. And then at the end of the show, take everything down, bring it out to the storage shed, bring the cinder blocks out to the storage shed. You were probably
in the best shape of your life doing that, lifting cinder blocks all the time.
Yeah, I had no skin on my hands either. Because, it's only today that it's dawning on me that I could have worn gloves.
Very nice.
Yeah.
If only you saw a sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. So was it hard to get a following if you guys were in a different place Thursday, a different place Friday, a different place Saturday?
Yeah. And, this was our way of communicating with our fans. We'd put up posters and flyers and tell people and tell them to tell people. And, if we had the internet, it would have been so much easier.
Right.
I wish we had it back then, but we didn't. And that's really the most interesting thing is that with social media, we had social media then. I guess it was just people talking to each other and telling people about it.
Right.
It just took longer because you couldn't tell 100 people at once. You could tell one person.
Yeah. Well,
that's how we built it. It was word of mouth, almost entirely word of mouth.
Right. I remember in Madison, the social media or posting for the public was, making flyers and stapling them on those weird cylinder things that were on every block. Remember those?
Yeah, and then you had to go back the next week because someone had put up 3 posters over your posters.
Yes, so you had to restaple. Every once in a while, they'd
restaple it.
Yes, every once in a while, I remember they'd rip it all down, and then you'd look and be like, oh, that's what it looks like without posters all over it.
Yeah, it was like 4 feet thinner because of all the layers of posters.
Yes, and there was also sidewalk chalking, too.
Yeah. I mean, you try everything. It was basically guerrilla marketing.
Yeah. So what do you think you did in San Jose that was a little bit different? What did you bring to Comedy Sports there that was a little bit different than what you learned in Madison?
Well, what's interesting was that everything that I did in undergraduate and graduate school, I didn't realize at the time, basically prepared me to become a Comedy Sports player and director. Mm-hmm. All the classes I took, voice and movement, and then just studying lighting and direction and everything just prepared me for that. But I basically followed the Milwaukee blueprint and Dick's blueprint. Mm-hmm. So for me, Dick's blueprint was he saw this great show that Keith Johnstone had created and then wanted to build on it.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling me the story of him saying, I want to have it was Dick's idea. We're going to put artificial turf on the stage. We're actually going to be wearing uniforms.
Yeah,
right?
He also was on a plane coming up with this idea. He was on a plane flying back from Seattle, came up with this.
Yep. In fact, the last time I saw Dick a few months ago, we compared those 2 stories. And I said, I got hit with inspiration on a flight as well.
Yes.
But so, he had all of those things to add to the show. Uh-huh. And I think what Pat and I worked on adding was the sense of building the excitement and not letting the energy drop at any point during the show. So I remember, going to, I'm a big sports fan, and going to any sporting event, and there was always music playing, while the ball players were warming up.
Right.
And in between innings, there was always something going on. So, one of our things was we're going to have, just really exciting, high energy music playing for the pre-show.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And, Pat was in theater, I was in theater, and we always knew that, depending on the mood you wanted to create, you would play certain music during the pre-show, so if it's a really dramatic play, it's really heavy, you're certainly not playing, fun, upbeat, happy music before.
Right.
And if it's a comedy, you're not playing classical music and, light jazz before because you're trying to pump up the audience. So,
exactly.
That was something that it wasn't our idea. Other people have been doing it in theater and events for years. We just wanted to bring it to the show and say, let's just play like really high energy, pump up, all those pump up the jam, jock jam CDs and everything. And we're just playing all of that music before, while the audience is coming in.
Right.
And then, we had a keyboard player, but we also had someone on sound, and we were like, every time, even when you're announcing, have music playing when you're announcing the score.
Yeah.
And, the only time there's going to be silence is when we're on stage literally performing. And then as soon as we're done, as soon as the ref blows the whistle and says time, bang,
boom.
There's more high energy music playing, just like bumper music playing.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. I'm going to have to bring that to my classroom. Sometimes it's hard to motivate teenagers. Maybe I got to start playing music. I do get on the table occasionally and sing and dance just to try to wake them up. But I like that idea of adding music to it.
Yeah. Well, and, Pat is a musician as well. So,
yes.
we were using his wealth of knowledge too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
We fit together really well because Pat didn't mind playing the bad cop.
Oh, okay.
And I loved playing the good cop. So, that's how we kind of ran the team together. Pat was functioning on the business side and would do the scheduling and the lineups. I would do the training of the players and the games and focus on the artistic side. And then we'd play good cop, bad cop.
Okay.
And, we made a very effective team.
Yeah.
And I love just dissecting the show and taking it apart. So I don't know if Pat told you this, but, at our shows in San Jose, when we first started, we would do the show, and then Pat and I would go back to our place, and we would stay up till 2-3 in the morning, just dissecting the show and analyzing what we thought worked and what didn't work.
Yeah.
And we were just so into the idea of making sure that we made all of these adjustments so that the next show was even better.
Oh, okay. Now, how did you do notes? How do you handle notes in San Jose? Do you have them? Do you run them with your players after a show?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And again, that just came from my theater background. I was just used to doing notes after a play. You'd sit down with the director after you'd finish a performance, and the director would give you notes. And I just brought that to the team from the beginning. It was pretty easy at the beginning because when we first started, probably 90% of our first 12 players were also actors.
Okay.
And it was easy with notes for them because they were used to getting notes.
Sure. So they were familiar with it.
After their shows.
Yeah. Okay.
But 6 weeks into our initial run, half of our players got cast in a play.
Oh, no.
And they were just gone. They were like, we'll be back in 2 months, when we're done with the play.
Right.
And Pat and I had to scramble to find other players. And I realized at the time that if I relied totally on actors, if they were good enough to be in comedy sports, they were also good enough to be cast in other things.
Right. Right.
Right. So I'm going to lose them. So I had to start looking for people that weren't actors to mix in.
And how did you find them?
It was mostly at the beginning, it was just friends of the players in the show.
Okay.
I said, who do you know that you hang out with that's just fun and funny and you think could do this?
Yeah. Okay.
And then we started doing actual workshops, where we started training people.
Yeah.
And, now we're at the point where I'd say maybe 10% of our team are actors.
Oh, okay.
90% are not.
Yeah, yeah. And what's your philosophy when you're teaching people improv? What are you looking for? What are you trying to express to them about this whole crazy thing we do?
Well, that's, for me, this is a skill set that anyone can learn and anyone can get better at.
Okay.
not everyone's going to have that last bit of talent that will make them a professional comedy sports player.
Sure.
But I look at it in the same way, like I said, I've grown up playing sports, and I'll use golf as an example. I enjoy playing golf.
Uh-huh.
I can take lessons. I have taken lessons. I've gotten better. If I take lessons for the next 5 years, I will get much, much, much better.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll probably become as good as I can be.
Sure.
But I will never be a professional golfer. I just don't have that, whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah.
That would make me a professional golfer. I wanted to be a baseball player growing up. I still do, actually. If I get an offer now, Christine, I would be off this phone immediately and on a plane. But
I'm done.
I'm out of here. Leave this nonsense behind.
Right, this craziness.
Yeah. But, as a kid, I practiced and practiced and practiced, and I got better and better and better. But I was never going to be a professional baseball player. Uh-huh. And I played ball with guys that, some of them got to the minor leagues, right?
Okay.
But never made it to the major leagues, though. But even these guys that got to the minor leagues, there was just something about it. They could throw the ball harder than I could. I would throw the ball as hard as I could, and they would throw the ball, and it would just look like they were throwing it nice and easy, and the ball was going faster than me throwing it as hard as I could.
Yeah, yeah.
There's just something about their build, their makeup, their talent. They just have that talent to be able to do it. But
sure.
I apply that to improv, too. I think you can get to be much, much better at improv and really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And some people will find that they do have that hidden talent.
Sure.
And that's one of the most enjoyable things for me, is seeing somebody in the level 1 class, because I always teach the beginner class.
Okay.
And then watching them go through that journey and make that discovery at some point. And, the light turns on and they get it.
Yes.
And they're able to do it.
Yes, for sure. So now what do you do when you, Jeff Kramer, have a bad show, like a show you're not quite feeling, your energy's not there? How do you snap yourself out of it? I like that you were saying you and Pat Short decided to keep the energy up the entire time in the show with certain tricks with music and everything. But how do you lift yourself up?
How do I lift myself up? Let's see. Last week, you want me to talk about last week or the week before or the week before that?
4 weeks ago is what I want to hear. Exactly.
I'll tell you that too. Well, so early on, I put a lot of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
That I always had to have good shows, because I was the only one that had ever played ComedySportz before when we first started here.
Oh, sure.
And so I had to be, in the middle of every scene and do all of the heavy lifting. And there was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And I quite often felt like I would have a bad show, but I couldn't let anyone know that I thought I had a bad show.
Right.
Because I thought I was, I'm having to set this example of, no, you get to this level and you're always at this level.
Right, right.
But, as the players got better and then got to my level and then passed me, it began to dawn on me that, well, A, it's not all about me. And B, the great thing about doing this is I don't have to be on in order for ComedySportz to be great. All I have to do is recognize where I am right there at that moment. And then it's just a matter of switching up my contribution to the show.
Yeah.
And it's all about leading and following, right? So, there's, when I was acting, and I still do, but, if I have a big role in a show and I have an off night, that absolutely affects the entire play.
Yeah.
The entire performance.
Right.
If I have an off night in ComedySportz, it has no effect on the show.
Right.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
And the best part is nobody in the audience knows when I have a bad show.
Sure.
Only I know.
Yeah, you're right. Because you're holding yourself up to a standard.
Yeah. And it from when you're on stage, nights when it's clicking and nights when it's a struggle.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do this too. You just adapt and change up what you're going to do in the show that night.
Right.
So if you don't feel it, then you just go, well, who is feeling it? Okay. It's like basketball, someone's hot one night, get them the ball.
Right.
So on nights when I'm hot, they get me the ball. And on the other 90% of the shows, I'm looking to pass the ball to the person that's high.
Well, you have to be very unselfish to think that way. And that's hard for some people to think that, like, I'm not doing well, I'm going to pass it to the person who's getting more laughs. But that's important when you're doing these kinds of shows.
Yeah, and I think that can be trained.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah.
It does take a talent to do it and get better at it, but I think that's something that's easily trained. You should easily be able to see who's on.
Right.
It's just a matter of adjusting your ego.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're in a company of people, though, that's really tight-knit and collaborative and admires each other's talents, then it doesn't matter, right? I know that when I'm on, I will get the ball.
Yeah. That's good.
If I'm confident of the people around me.
Right.
Right. And that's another thing I love about comedy sports. Is, this collaborative, this is a group of people that respect each other, respect each other's talents, and are able to see that. And, if someone has friends or family that are in the audience at the show, it's, well, A, you're captaining tonight.
Right.
We want you to look good. And B, we're going to make you look good in front of your friends and family.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. And in fact, it doesn't even matter whether you're on or not. We're going to make it look like you're on.
Right.
we will set you up to be able to do that. In fact, we're going to play all of the games that you're really strong at tonight. And we take care of each other. We do that. And so it starts with someone's very first show.
Yes.
So I'm sure you've seen that too in Milwaukee. When someone's in their first match here in San Jose, it's a big deal. It's a big event.
Oh, yeah.
It's exciting. There's new energy coming onto the team.
Right.
And we set the whole show up around them. We say, what's your favorite opening round game?
Yes.
I really like playing What Are You Doing? Okay, we're playing What Are You Doing tonight?
Let's do it, yeah.
All right, it's time for the team choice game. What is your absolute favorite comedy sports game to play? I like Day in the Life. Okay, we're playing Day in the Life.
Yeah.
All right, head-to-head game. What's your favorite head-to-head game? Right? And so on. So that the whole show is nothing but comfortable for them, and it gives them that boost, and we're literally setting them up in their first show for success.
Now, isn't it great, though? It's just such a family. It's such a support system. Yeah.
And it's something where when we're looking for players, that intangible, for me, is over and above talent.
Right.
Talent is not the first thing we're casting for. It's in a very important part of it, but I know this has happened in other cities too. We've turned away a lot of really talented people. Super talented people. They look great in workshop. Oh, they are brilliant at doing this.
Yeah.
But they don't pass the, would you have them over at your house for a party test?
Right.
I mean, that's what it is. When we're looking at someone, we're like, okay, can you picture yourself being really comfortable being around them at a social event, having that at your house for a party?
Right.
Right? And if the answer is no, then that's it.
Yeah, they're not a good teammate then, maybe. Yeah.
I would take a team of people with less talent any day over an extremely talented group of people that can't play together.
Yeah, you're right.
What kind of show is that?
Yeah, it's not a comfortable one, that's for sure.
I've seen those shows.
Yeah.
not at ComedySportz, but other groups, whether it's improv or plays, you can tell when the people don't get along.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much in plays because, if you're good actors, then no one knows that you hate the person that you're playing
right.
off stage with.
Right.
And, I this semester I was teaching a film class, and we were showing one of the movies. I was Some Like It Hot, right? Okay. And it's Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe.
Yes. And
they're doing these steamy love scenes. And, it's Marilyn Monroe. And, I told the students afterwards, by the way, did you know that Tony Curtis hated working with her? She was late 3 hours every day to the set, and he couldn't stand her attitude, and he just despised working with her. And they're like, what? It's like, you can't tell when you watch the movie, can you? You're like, no, it looks like he's really hot for her. It's like, that's acting.
That's acting. The end.
But it doesn't work in improv.
Yeah, you're right.
It really does. It works to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But that trust level
Yes.
has to be there, and the ability to recognize when to get somebody the ball and to get them the ball and not, we pass the ball to each other. We don't step in front and intercept the ball.
Yeah. You're right. Those are great insights. What is a strength you think that you bring to a show? What do you feel really confident about when you're performing?
Well, so my answer is different today than it would have been, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Sure.
But what I bring to the show, I think, is basically what I told you about, is that I know what my abilities are on any given night, and I can recognize it kind of early and decide what my role is going to be that night.
Yeah.
And, my role as a player is very different when I'm playing here in San Jose, because I'm also, the artistic director and basically everybody's boss too.
Right.
So my role is very different when I'm playing here as opposed to when I'm playing as a guest or at a championship, in another city. Those I'm way more relaxed. I actually tend to play much more consistently when I'm there because I'm going, oh, this is so great. I'm not worried about how many tickets we sold or what I'm going to say to somebody and notes afterwards. I'm just going to go out and have fun and enjoy playing with these people.
Right.
And I'm much more relaxed. So I guess it's just, I'm looking at things from the player perspective, but I'm also looking at things from the audience perspective.
Okay.
And again, that's what I think is something that separates Comedy Sportz from every other improv show that's out there, is that it is 100% focused on the fans.
Yes.
From the time they walk in the door to the time we're high-fiving them afterwards.
Right.
And everything is about that. So I've taught our players to do what we call calling an audible. In football, it's you call a play, you come up to the line, the quarterback looks at the defense and goes, oh no, that play is not going to work with the way they're lined up. So you, at the line, call a different play.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so you call it calling an audible because that's when the quarterback starts yelling different words and numbers at the rest of his teammates, which is code for we're changing it to this play.
Right. Oh my God, stop.
Yeah. And so, that is something that I think I bring, is that ability to read the audience quickly and decide that we need to shift how we're playing that night or what we're playing really specifically to that crowd.
Well, that's important. That's important, being able to read the crowd. It's very important because it's about the crowd, and some people don't pick up on that. It's about the crowd's experience, and we want them to have fun. So what's their energy? What can we do with these people tonight versus the crowd that's coming in tomorrow? Right.
And, you had your heart set on playing a game. And, there's if you're ever going to make me angry as a director, having a bad show never makes me angry, right? Making a weird decision in a scene is not going to ever make me angry because it happened in the moment. So how can I blame you for something that you just reacted to?
Right, yeah.
And obviously, if you had the time to think about it, you wouldn't do it that way. But if you want to really get me mad, it's you decide, let's say, for instance, we're going to play Shakespeare tonight.
Okay.
Right? And don't get me wrong. I've acted in a lot of Shakespeare. I love improvised Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And you go out into the crowd and you realize that there's 25 people there for a kid's 13th birthday party. And, there's also a motorcycle gang that bought a bunch of tickets, right?
That's a good show.
Right.
Yeah.
But you go out there and you play, the first game, whatever it was.
Right.
And the crowd doesn't, react as big as you wanted them to.
Right.
And you go up and you say, and now we're going to play Shakespeare.
Oh.
Right?
I can feel it already.
If you want to make me angry, that's what you do. And that's when you'll see steam coming out of my ears.
Right.
I'll go, you absolutely were not thinking about this particular audience. You played Shakespeare because you wanted to play it to satisfy your own ego and desires.
Yes.
And The show is not about you.
Right.
It's not.
That's some people, though, honestly, don't think that way. So it's good that, you can bring that to the show. That's very important that at least one person can bring that to the show. But hopefully everybody would be on the same page and not opting to play Shakespeare during that particular show.
Right. No, I mean, it's, yes, you can be faulted and say, well, you never take enough risks. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, well.
Someone years ago did accuse me of that, saying, we need to take more risks in the show. I said, what do you do for a living? And they said, oh, I work at, I work at the Apple store. I go, I think you should start selling PCs. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, come on. Why aren't you taking a risk?
Take some risks,
Take some risks. You're not going to grow. What's the point of taking a risk? And I think that's when the point at least starts to begin to dawn on them. They're like, well, we can't do that. Why? Well, because it would ruin our business. Exactly.
End scene.
End scene. Right.
So what do you think San Jose brings to a championship? What do you guys do? Like, I always reference that Milwaukee, we don't tend to do a lot of musical games right now. We don't have anyone on keys. And some cities do a lot of musical games. So what do you think San Jose does that brings to championships? Well,
it doesn't change. At least my attitude when we go to championships is it's still about the crowd that's out there. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we add in is it's also about the team that we're currently playing.
Yeah.
So, for instance, 1 year we'll be playing a team and it's a brand new city, right? It's their first match at championship.
Yeah.
And so our attitude going in is, what are your favorite games to play?
Yeah.
That's what we're going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it's not about us.
Sure.
It's both teams have to play well in order to have the best match.
Right.
And if you're playing a game out of your comfort zone that you really don't feel comfortable playing in front of a couple hundred people in a different city, why would we do that? Right?
Yeah.
It happened to us the very first championship.
Oh, no, it did.
Maybe that's a reason why I do it that way, because of what happened to us.
Because you've been burned.
We got burned a whole bunch of times the first 3 or 4 years.
Oh, no.
Right? So, the first ever championship, who do we play? Milwaukee, right? And it's at the Todd Ware Theater.
Okay, right.
Which was in there with 300 people in there.
Yeah.
Right? And, we come running out. Here's San Jose. You hear the sound of crickets. Here's Milwaukee. Everyone's out of their seats screaming and yelling, right? So that's how the match started for us, right? And so we go out there and Dick is playing and Bob Orvis is playing and it's Bo Johnson. And, I know all these guys, but our players are literally shaking.
Oh, no. Yes.
And we go up for the challenge round, and they go, all right, they challenge us to a game that nobody on our team has ever heard of before.
Oh, boy.
And I had played it once.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of the game. It'll come to me, but the essence is it's a naive game. You leave the room. Mm-hmm. They get different locations. You come back in, and the ref tells you what your location is.
Okay.
And, Mystery Ware. That was the name of the game.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mystery Ware. So we come back in, and the ref whispers to me, you're in a laundromat.
Okay. And
they whisper in the ear of the other player, you're on an airplane.
Yeah.
With the other player, you're in a playground. And the other person says, you're at the Battle of Waterloo. Right?
Okay.
Now go, play a scene. And, you're trying to drop clues as to where you are and also keep a scene going. And then at the end, everybody tries to guess everybody's location.
Right.
And so we went out and played this game. And not only did we do perhaps the worst scene ever done in the history of comedy sports. And I will raise my hand and say I played a big part in that.
Oh, boy.
And then we were 0 for 4 in our guesses.
Oh, no.
Right? So that was our experience in our first championship, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, for me, I don't want anyone else to ever go through that again, especially at their first championship. So it's the same thing as someone playing their first show. What are your favorite games? What do you want to play? Well, that's what we're going to play.
Yeah.
If it's a city that's been around for a while, or especially a city that we've played with before, then we just have a lot of fun. We go, all right, let's do this. Let's do that. Hey, do you want to take a chance and, make up a game? Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a different type of event, a different type of show. It depends on who we're playing. So I think that's what we bring to championship, is just that idea of let's focus on trying to make this like a home show, right?
Yeah.
We're taking care of the audience. We're taking care of each other.
Yeah. So now you have to have a favorite game. What's your favorite game?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, I have several, and they've changed over the years, but the first game that I really fell in love with was Five Things.
Okay. Yeah.
Dick showed us that in our first workshop, and for whatever reason, I just loved that game. I loved giving clues.
So you like to give the clues. Game. You don't like to guess. You like to give them?
Well, yes. And so what happened was I loved giving clues so much the first time that I just kept doing it.
Okay.
And then the entire time. And then we also had some people that were really great at guessing in Madison.
Okay.
Great guessers. So they would guess. I was always giving clues.
Yeah.
Always. Came out to San Jose, showed everybody the game.
Yeah.
And went, well, I have to be the clue giver on my team when we do it, because nobody's played this game before. And it's deadly if you're not giving good clues and they don't get any of them, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. And one night someone said, hey, why don't you guess? And it dawned on me that I had never guessed in Five Things. Never.
Oh.
Never. And I went, no, that's okay. You guess. You're good at it.
I'm good.
Another year went by because I went, I'm everybody's director. I can't go out there and just not guess any of them. How would that look to everybody? They look up to me. I can't do that. So another year went by.
Yeah.
And I still didn't guess, because now I was petrified.
Oh, no.
That I wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
And the only way I got better at guessing was Kurt Scholler and I spent 6 weeks in Club Med.
Oh, okay, sure.
We went there on a romantic getaway. We went there because ComedySportz had a gig.
I heard it was lovely.
Yeah, it was.
Kurt, come on. You can't get better than that.
Exactly. We've been close ever since.
I love him.
Yeah. No, but we went there because ComedySportz got hired to be at these various Club Meds teaching improv to guests.
Yeah, right.
So at one point, they needed people to stay there for a while. This was like a year-long thing.
Oh, wow.
So they looked for performers who could go down there for 6 to 8 weeks at a time.
Nice.
And do that. And so that's really where I first met Kurt and Jim McDonnell, Dr. Jim. We were all single and had time. And so Kurt and I were there together for 6 weeks. And Five Things was one of the games that they loved to see in performance. We had to do a little mini performance every night.
Right. Okay.
And so 5 to 6 days a week for 6 weeks, Kurt and I would play Five Things, and one of us would give clues and the other one would guess.
Yeah.
And so I guessed a lot.
Nice.
And nobody knew me down there, so, I could fail.
Right. Who cares?
Not worry about it.
Who cares?
But by the time I came back, I went, all right, I think I could do this in a show.
Sure.
But it was just practice.
Yeah, practice.
6 weeks, 5 days a week of practicing guessing.
Right.
And even then, I will still tell you that that's my biggest weakness. How sometimes, people will guess all 5 things?
Yes.
So I've been playing ComedySportz now for 35 years, and I've guessed all 5 things twice.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
2 times.
There you go. Well, I used to be good at guessing, but the older I get, and I've had 2 children now, I feel like, I don't know if you've heard of pregnancy brain, which I always thought was, like that forgetfulness when you're pregnant. And I thought it would come back after you gave birth. And my doctor laughed at me and she said, oh, no, you'll never get that back. And so
isn't that nice to hear?
Oh, my God. I feel like I lost so many brain cells just having children. And now I've tried to guess again. And it is so terrifying because I feel like as soon as I guess something like, oh, I'm bowling, the second I think it in my head, it just slips away. And then I can't remember and I start to panic because my memory is so shot now, I feel like. So I'm better at giving the clues now.
Yeah, I'm like that too. But, that's another thing where you're either on or you're not.
Right, yeah.
So whether you're guessing in 5 things or whether you're guessing in a game like debate or home shopping, where people are giving you pantomime clues.
Right.
And I have no idea what will happen from night to night with me with that. I have not ever gotten to a point where I go, I'm consistent with that. Uh-huh. So there are some nights where I'll go out there and someone will just put a hand up and I'll go, oh, you're water skiing. I get it. Like it crystallizes in my mind. I can see exactly what you're trying to pantomime to me.
Right.
And then the very next time I guess, I'll go out there and you will do this absolutely perfect clue with brilliant mime that a professional mime would go, oh, I need you in my performing company. And I look at you and all I see is you waving your arms in the air. I have no idea.
You're done. It's lost.
It's gone. I haven't gotten it from the beginning. But, something that I have gotten better at over the years is recognizing that early. And then again, just making the adjustment. And I go, okay, well, I'm not going to be getting any of these things tonight.
Right,
so now I have to just turn this into something funny and entertain the audience for the next 3 to 4 minutes. Right? Because again, it's not about me. It's, and I can let that I can let go. I can let go of the fact that I just didn't see any of the clues tonight. You probably did amazing clues. I just didn't see it. So now I'm going to do funny things to keep the crowd entertained until the ref mercifully blows the whistle and does that. But it can be great. I have seen shows with other players that did that too. I've seen shows where players got 0 out of the 5 things and people in the audience came up and said, I've watched Comedy Sports for 10 years. That's the best 5 things I've ever seen.
Yes, totally. Which only goes to your point that it's about the crowd. It's the audience enjoying themselves. It's not about the players or getting them correct. You're right. I know. I've seen that too. Where the person's trying their best to get it and they just can't get it. It's funnier than, it's funnier than when the other team got them.
Right. But they will also pick up on you if you look frustrated that you're not getting them.
For sure. Yes.
The audience will pick up on that. So it's just a matter of you recognize, all right, I'm not getting these things tonight. So now my role is to entertain the audience for the next 4 minutes.
Right. Now I'm going to switch gears now because I'm not guessing these. Yep. For sure.
Yeah, but I think the whole point of doing Comedy Sports is learning how to switch gears.
Yeah, you're right. And it's helpful in life, right? Do you notice that improv has helped you throughout your life, not just on stage?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's helped me with that. It's helped me with, my relationship with my wife.
Sure.
It's like I recognize much earlier now, how she's feeling or what she's doing and how I need to adjust.
Does she do improv?
No.
Okay.
But she's very, very funny. And that's, one of the things that attracted me to her.
Sure.
But I met her because she decided to take an improv class.
Okay.
She had just gone through a divorce and she was just feeling down. And her brother had seen Comedy Sports before and said, hey, you should go and see this show.
Yeah. So
she saw the show and decided to take an improv class. And guess who her teacher was?
Oh, was it you?
No, but after I
killed
that guy, and then it was me.
Very nice.
But again, that's now changed my entire life, right? Yeah. If I hadn't done Comedy Sports, I wouldn't have met Cindy.
Exactly.
And so it literally changed the entire trajectory of my life.
Yes. Now, where did non-dairy come from, your nickname?
I always wanted a great nickname. And in Madison, I was the only person on the team. I couldn't come up with a nickname. I thought of nicknames for other people. Everyone else had these great nicknames in Madison. Mike Rock was Mike Rolling Rock. I was like, that's so great. Oh, it's a beer. And it's, it's party. And there was Pat Walsh, who was another brilliant Comedy Sports player in Madison, was Patrick Wise Guy Walsh, and it just fit his personality and everything. Dick's nickname was Tuna.
Tuna, yes.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's so funny. All right, I got to think of a funny nickname. I could not come up with one. Never came up with one. The best I came up with in Madison was the Tamer, and that was just because it rhymed.
That's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie.
It was awful. I never could. And it would always bother me. And then one day I was doing a play, just with a friend of mine who was just like another just kind of funny guy. He didn't do improv, but he was just a funny guy. And we would do bits like we would pretend to be sports announcers, and call people up. And one day he goes, and here he is, Jeff Non-Dairy Kramer. And I went, that's brilliant.
That's it. See, you can't give yourself a nickname. Others give you the nickname.
Yeah. Unless you're a brilliant improviser and very creative. You can come up with your own name. But for me, someone else had to do it.
Someone else does it right. Well, we're going to start wrapping things up. But before we do, I have a couple games here I want to play with you. Real quick, a would you rather question. All right. I'm going to have you pick a number between 1 and 3,000.
Really?
Yes. Okay. I got a list of
them. The number 2499 just popped into my head.
Oh, so then it's meant to be. It's a sign, if you will.
Yeah. I don't know why. It just popped into my head.
All right, 2499. I don't understand it. I don't know what this says. Would you rather do the whip? I don't get it. Would you rather do the whip nay or Gangnam style dance every time someone says your name? Gangnam, whip nay.
Oh, okay.
I don't even know.
Gangnam style, yeah. How do you not know these things,
I know.
Christine?
I've heard of that one, but what's whip nay?
The whip and the nay.
Oh, that cleared it up for me.
You never heard the song? Now watch me whip, now watch me nay.
No.
Oh, well, get on Christine.
I'm sorry. I'm clearly very, very not
Get on
cool.
YouTube.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Well, that's something else about doing comedy sports. It's having to keep up on pop culture.
Oh, really? Yes, I know.
And
it's
know
hard.
all these things.
Yes.
So whether you're good at it or not, like, when twerking was all the rage. Do you know, I actually I hurt myself twerking in a show once because the audience we got 5 points from the ref if we twerked for 30 seconds because we were losing by like 100 points that night.
100? Wow.
Yeah. And so I had to go to the chiropractor because my back started killing me. Yeah. I did something to my back. And he said, how did you do it? And I said, well, it's kind of an embarrassing story. And the chiropractor said, look, I've been a chiropractor for 20 years. I've heard every possible story. There's nothing you can tell me. I said, all right, I was doing an improv show and we got 10 points if we twerked for 30 seconds. And he paused for a minute and he went, okay, you're now my number one story.
Yeah, okay, you win.
You win. You've never heard that before. All right. I would do the Gangnam style dance.
Okay.
And that's only because it used to be, for a while, when it was really, really popular, we made it into an ending.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, yeah. I'll have to look up the other one because I have no idea what whip name is.
All right. Yeah, you have to. You have to. In fact, it became so big that I went to see Bruce Springsteen.
Shut up. He did not do it.
One year. Oh, I've seen Bruce Springsteen like 20 times.
No, but you're going to tell me he did whip nay?
He when he does Dancing in the Dark, he always brings an audience member up on stage to dance with him. Right. And he got this like 14-year-old girl to come up on stage and dance with him. And she started doing the whip and the nay, and he recognized it and tried to do it too. Well, I'm obviously not as cool as Bruce Springsteen. Well, none of us are, so don't worry about that. No idea. All right, last game real quick before we head out. The game of what if. Jeff Kramer, I want you to tell me, what if you went to USC? If I went to USC, I would have studied acting. They would have pushed me into getting away from theater and just trying to audition for movies. Mm-hmm. I would have gone to a million auditions, but I wouldn't have been talented enough to get in one. Mm-hmm. And then I finally would have taken a role in a low-budget movie. Mm. And while we were in the middle of filming it, the cops would have come crashing through the door. Uh-oh. Because we were in an illegal area. Oh, boy. And I would have tried to run because I was just terrified of what was going on. And they would have tackled me thinking that I was fleeing the scene of a crime. and they would have thrown me in jail.
Oh, boy.
And then while I was in jail, one of my prison cellmates shanked one of my other cellmates,
Oh, no.
hid the knife under my bed, and then they found it and blamed me, and I got the electric chair.
Oh, man. You weren't kidding. That was rough.
I'm telling you, everything ends with dying in the electric chair.
Oh, man. Well,
if you make the wrong decision. So.
I have to tell you, I am so glad they served you that cheese on the plane that day, because
Me too.
that has really helped the entire improv scene, and I appreciate all the
You've been
insight.
talking to nobody right now.
I know. I would just be like talking to myself, which is pretty much what I do anyway.
Nobody on the other end of the phone. So.
Well, thank you so much for doing this today, Jeff. I appreciate it. I'd love to talk to you again sometime. This has really been fantastic.
Well, thanks, Christine. I had a blast, too. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad you didn't sizzle in the electric chair. Jeff Kramer, everybody. The Comedy Sports Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Send us your favorite Would You Rather question at thecomedysportspodcast@gmail.com. As always, I'm Christine Rollo Capriolo. Catch you next time.
The Comedy Sports Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.